Alrighty guys, this is the submitted assignment from Friday, April 24th. You had 9 questions, all of which you had to solve and then graph. Now I wrote in the directions that you had to graph them by hand. That's only because there's no number line there for you. So you'll see what I mean after we do the first one. But all of these that are inequalities, remember that means you must have a number line to represent all possible answers. So the other thing you're going to have to just kind of bear with me today, guys, as we do this. I might not have enough room on the front. I'll have to flip some things over, but I'm going to kind of be all over the place. So number one, I'll rewrite every single question so that you can definitely see what's going on. But there's number one, 6 minus 2y less than a negative 12 plus 4y. So pretty simple one to get you started with. You've got variables on both sides, numbers on both sides. Our goal would be to get the numbers together on one side, get the variables together on the other side, and then solve. So I always like to try and deal with positives. So I'm actually going to add the 2y, I'm going to add the 12. They're going to go to opposite sides. When I do that, it creates an 18 less than 6y, which is really nice because I'll divide by the 6. And leave me with 3 is less than y, but you've got to be very careful. Okay, 2 ways to do this. You can just flat out rewrite that if you want to. Or what you could do is you can get very good at reading in the direction of the variable. So since y is on this side, you can read this as y is greater than 3. And you always read in the direction of the variable. That's a little bit trickier, so some people would prefer just rewrite that. Notice when I rewrote it, it was pointing at the 3. It stays pointing at the 3. So this is what I meant by graphing by hand. You can make your sketches very simple. I would recommend you always put 0. You put the number you're talking about into the appropriate place, and that's it. I need to be greater than 3. That means I should have an open circle at the 3. Greater than means all numbers to the right of 3, and that would have been your final answer for number 1. All right, number 2. 8 times by 3 minus x minus 12 greater than or equal to 16 minus 2x, which means I've got to do a lot of solving first. I'm going to have to distribute my 8. I'll then eventually have to combine like terms. That gives me a 24 minus an 8x minus 12 greater than or equal to 16 minus 2x. These are like terms on the same side, so you just do it as is. That's 24 minus 12, which is 12 minus 8x greater than or equal to 16 minus 2x. Again, I would always prefer to have my variable positive. That way I wouldn't have to divide by a negative. And that way I don't have to get confused, because remember, when you divide by a negative, you need to flip the sign. So I'm actually going to add my variable to the right. Because of that, that means I'm going to have to subtract my constant to the left. It gives me a negative 4 is greater than or equal to 6x. I will divide by 6. And I end up getting that negative 2/3, that's 4 over 6 reduced, is greater than or equal to x. So again, here's my number line. All I need you to do, put 0 and then appropriately place that number. That number should definitely be to the left of 0. It's negative 2/3. Again, if you need to rewrite this, really what this says is x is less than or equal to negative 2/3, which means solid dot all numbers to the left of negative 2/3. All right, number 3. Number 3 is 4n is greater than 15 minus n. All I need to do here is get the n's together. 5n is greater than 15. Divide by 5. N is greater than 3. This was one of the easiest ones on the pages. Put your 0 down, place 3 where it should be. N needs to be greater than that. In fact, you actually end up getting the same answer as you did in number 1. Hopefully that didn't confuse you and you didn't think you did anything wrong. Number 4, here's where I'm going to start to just get extra pieces of paper so as not to confuse you. So I'm going to be able to do all my work here. I'm just going to keep this off to the side so I can read the appropriate question. So this is number 4. 13 minus 3z plus 4 in parentheses z minus 5 is all less than or equal to 5z times by 4 minus 1. So again, it looks like there's a lot going on, but this is a pretty typical inequality. You need to simplify both sides, get the variables to one side, constants to the other, and then graph. So I'm going to have to start by distributing my 4 on the left and my 5z on the right. However, before you distribute that 5z, you can recognize in parentheses there, 4 minus 1, those are like terms already, so I actually don't have to distribute because that just simplifies to a 3. You would be wasting your time. You obviously can, and you will get the same answer, but I think that's a little bit easier. Now just call that a 15z. Save yourself a lot of time. On the left side, those z and 5 are not like terms, so you will have to distribute. Now you got to collect your like terms that are on the same side. The negative 3z plus the positive 4z gives you a 1z. 13 minus 20 is a negative 7. I'm going to take my z to the other side. Negative 7 is less than or equal to a 14z. Divide by your 14. Hopefully you noticed. Remember, fractions, decimals not off the table for me. That's a negative 1/2, which is less than or equal to z. And once again, our variable actually ends up being on the right. No issue there. Either read in the direction of the variable, z is greater than or equal to negative 1/2, or rewrite it. If it's greater than or equal to negative 1/2, that means we would have to shade to the right. All right, number 5. Number 5 is 7y minus 9 is less than 61, or, so we've got our first compound inequality, and it comes at number 5. I might not have given myself a lot of room here. We need a 12 in parentheses y plus 6 less than 15y minus 36. So again, a lot of work, a little bit more work for the actual problem because this is a compound inequality, means we're going to have 2 points of interest. So I'm going to simplify them on opposite sides. So on the left side here, very easy. Just have to add that 9. Add the 9 to the 61. That would give me 7y is less than 70. Divide by the 7. Y is less than 10. Or, okay, don't forget to bring that word straight down. Or, we're going to have to distribute. We get 12y plus 72 is less than 15y minus 36. Again, I am a big fan of I don't want my variables to be negative. So even if that means taking it to the right side, I'm going to take it to the right side. So that gives me a 108 is less than 3y. Divide by the 3. And 108 divided by 3 is 36. Yeah, 36. 72 is 2 36s. There's a 36. So 36 is less than y, which means y is greater than 36 if you want to rewrite that. So make your number line. This time you need to put 0 and both points of interest. So that means I need to put a 10 on here and a 36. And or means I need to take all possible solutions. That means I need anything that is less than 10 or anything that's bigger than 36. That would be your final answer. Any number over here. Any number over here. Those are all possible answers. Okay. There we go. Number 6. Number 6 is negative 5 is less than 25s plus 20 less than 70. These are, and I wish I would have done these with you guys in class, I think they are the easiest compound inequalities. I would prefer them, but some people think they're a little bit more difficult. I just think it's easier because you get 2 endpoints, you get your variable in the middle, and then that's also how you shade. So whatever you do to the middle, you have to do to both sides. So you get a negative 25 is less than 25s, which is less than 50. Divide by that 25, and it gives you 2 really nice endpoints, a negative 1, s is in the middle, and a 2. So again, I think these are, I personally am a fan of these because I think they're pretty easy to graph then. S needs to be in between those 2 numbers. So put those 2 numbers on your number line. S needs to be in between them. All right, number 7. Number 7 is negative 3 in parentheses x minus 5 less than 6x plus 12 less than 15. This one's tricky, and I can understand, so this is why some students don't prefer to do this question. So this way anyways, when you see this here, you have to be very aware of what's going on. If I distribute this negative 3, which is what you should do first, what can get tricky with this is I have a variable on this side and in the middle, but not on that side. So unfortunately, I think the easiest way to do this is you're going to have to split this up. And this is what you can do with these compound inequalities. The left side is less than 6x plus 12, and 6x plus 12 is less than the right side. So you use that middle expression twice. And now solve it like any other inequality. So I'm going to add my 3x. I'm going to subtract my 12. So this was actually probably the hardest one on here just because it looked a little weird at first. You're also going to get 2 fractions. All right, you're going to get that 1/3 is less than x, and you're going to get that x is less than 1/2. Maybe you want to rewrite this one. X is greater than 1/3, and x is less than 1/2. So those who really know their fractions, you'll actually end up finding out that these 2 numbers are pretty close to each other on the number line, with 1/3 being less than 1/2. But there are not many possible answers here. We need to be less than 1/2, greater than 1/3, so it's in between those 2 numbers. There aren't too many numbers in that area. All right, takes us to the last 2. The last 2 were the most recent thing you learned about. They are the absolute value. So 3, absolute value of x minus 6 greater than 15. You cannot distribute into absolute value. So the only way to get rid of that 3 is actually to divide. And you must do that first. And now, if you remember, absolute value is almost always going to have 2 solutions. We're going to split this up. You write the first inequality always the exact same way, nothing changes. Second one is when things change. I need to now be less than a -5. So the trick is flip the sign, flip the number. Greater than would give me solutions on the outside, so that's going to be the word or. Now solve. x is greater than 11 or x is less than 1. Make your number line 0, 1, 11. I need to be either greater than 11 or less than 1. Last one, number 9. You have the absolute value, x minus 11 plus 2, less than or equal to 3. First thing I gotta do is subtract that 2. Get that out of here. Now I can split this up. X minus 11 is less than or equal to 1, and x minus 11 is greater than or equal to a negative 1. Solve those separately. That says x is less than or equal to 12, and x is greater than or equal to 10. Put on 0, 10, and 12 would be to the right of that. Need to be less than or equal to 12, greater than or equal to 10. That gives me numbers like 11, 10 and a half, 11.4, all those numbers in between 10 and 12. I hope this helped. I do think this is the best way to continue moving forward. We will probably continue with this idea of you submit your final assignment of the week, the other assignments in the week, do on your own, check the answer key, ask me questions, make sure you know what you're doing, and then you can really see if you know what you're doing when you submit your assignment and you check in with my video the week after. Thanks for tuning in.